on these ones. All right, we'll be
Awesome.
going live any second now. Welcome everybody to the Making Awesome podcast, season 3, episode 18, and I am joined by a new friend, but a good friend, Miss Amy Wenslow. You are a product development wizard.
Ooh, thank you for the new title. I've been doing a little while, so hopefully there's some experience.
Before we get too deep into it, I need you to give me the Backstreet Boys, the who you are, the where you're from, the what you did, and as long as you love me.
Ah, okay. So I have been working in physical products for the US market for decades. Well, I've lost count. It's somewhere north of 20 years.
Wow.
And my background is actually from the design world. So really what we do is the intersection between product development, sales, and marketing, that sweet spot right in that middle where they all have to come together and work for you to have a viable business. That's really where we specialize. And so I come at this from a product design, creative standpoint, but I've also learned a whole lot about capital raises and business structures. And the business strategy is really where I love to play because let's face it, if you are making a product, a great idea is a wonderful thing, but it really needs to actually come fully to life to make the difference it's supposed to make in the world and give you the reward, both financially and emotionally and creatively, that you're designed for in the world. Like, that's what we creatives are for. We're here to move things forward. And to do that, you actually have to have it come to life.
We've got a whole army of creatives hanging out here in the chat. We've got Taiwan Ryder, we've got Worst Peter, we have Filament Stories, Zerno, Allison Ford, amongst others. Guys, comment in the chat. Let us know where you're calling in from. This is a birthday stream. It happens to be my birthday today. And we're going to be talking all about product dev because it's something that's near and dear to my heart. And Amy, what was it, a month or so ago, maybe a month and a half, that I heard you speak at the Tampa Bay Inventors Council. And I said, I'm fairly certain you're like the female version of me.
Well, Grant,
You're passionate. You just love what you do.
and every time I see the machines running in the background with you, it takes me back to my first business where we were doing product design for the jewelry industry. We were running CAD models. We had SolidWorks. We had Jewel CAD. We had Rhino 3D. We were really squarely in that, ran about 4 different software packages. And, so I am actually, don't tell anybody, but I'm a bit of a gearhead.
Nobody watches these. It's fine.
So everybody watching this, shh.
It's just between us girls.
I'm a bit of a gearhead. Like, my dad would have me on construction sites with him when he was a math professor, but in the summers he would rewire houses. So I was actually brought up with tools and with, everybody should know how to use a hammer. Everybody should know how to use a screwdriver. And everybody should also know how to cook and how to actually take care of themselves in the world. So I love seeing your machines. We actually have one of our clients is a 3D printing company. And we were just helping them with their messaging for a trade show coming up here, the Design and Manufacturing Show. So yeah,
in Vegas?
No, it's in Anaheim. It's February 7th through 9th.
There's a hardware show in Vegas at the end of the month, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lisa Lloyd wants me to go to that. I'm like, Lisa, that's a lot. That's a lot of planning and.
Yeah, well, the hardware show, the National Hardware Show, is the one you're talking about. Yeah. We go to that. I've spoken at that. I do a lot of trade show speaking and speaking for the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office about the how you make money part, not the lawyer part. Not a lawyer.
Yeah, no lawyers. We've had lawyers on here in the past, but no, we're just. I mean, really, we're just professional makers, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. We're just professional makers.
Right. You make the thing, we make the business.
Right.
You know?
Right. So talk to me about what that looks like, because I do a presentation on product development to kind of give people an idea of what it looks like. And the first slide, other than, the title slide, just says in big bold letters, your ideas are worthless, with an asterisk. And in very tiny font, it says, unless you execute. Do you believe that?
I don't believe they're worthless. I believe they're like, let me put it this way. When you're making wine and you're out in a vineyard, the best vineyards cull 2/3 of the grapes never even make it out of the vineyard. They end up on the ground, right? And I believe that an idea that is not brought to fruition when it's a really good idea and it would serve people is kind of like those grapes that are on the ground. They're just, okay, great, it was there, but
Yeah.
it didn't make the difference that it could have. It didn't expand people in the world. It didn't bring up a new possibility for us as humans, right? Not to get metaphysical about this, but I really believe that we're all here for a purpose. We're all here to create. And if you're designed as a creator, your thinking patterns, right? If our thinking patterns are designed that way, if we don't learn to utilize those, they will make us crazy. Like, and you'll get to see, oh, someone else did the thing and this, and they may not have even stolen your idea. The same approximate idea occurs to somewhere, I think the research was around 1,000 people
Wow.
on the planet at a time, and really only about three to five people do anything with it.
So then how do we, because I'm sure you deal with this from time to time when someone comes to you with what they believe is $1 billion idea. They have no money, no research, no nothing. How does someone get started to even validate that maybe their idea could make millions of dollars on Shark Tank? No matter how unrealistic that might be, and we've both had products that ended up on the tank. We both worked with people that have ended up in the tank, and there's a lot of TV magic, let's say, but when it comes to getting investors, a lot of what you see is not too far off from what does happen, just without all the commercial breaks. So how can someone that has this goal of, being in front of Mr. Wonderful, making that licensing deal, how do they even get started from the beginning?
Well, there's several things that they're going to need to do. And as you know, I speak on stage with Damon John occasionally, and have spoken on stage with Kevin Harrington
Yep.
and Bob Circosta, the original OG of QVC HSN world. So really, really well versed in this. First off, whenever I speak on an investor panel, we almost always get this question. And I remember one particular panel in Philadelphia, there were about 5 of us. I was kind of representing the early stage funding. And then there were VCs and there were crowdfunding platforms. And we got asked the question, which I thought was an interesting way to phrase it. And it was this: if you heard a great idea from a solo person that wanted to just stay the solo person in a project, or you had an okay idea with a really great team or a really good team, which do you invest in? And they barely got the question out between, like, all 5 of us went like the team.
Yep. 100%.
And we were asked why, right? Like, Grant, like, that's kind of an interesting thing from a creator's standpoint. Like, why would that be more important? Well, it's because an okay idea with a good team can be improved.
Yep.
You'll get more speed. So the first things to do if you're trying to validate an idea are, number one, get something duct taped together even. I don't care if it's collaged, like, have a seamstress sew apart, like, get something. 3D print pieces, fantastic technology. And if you really don't have the cash to even spend, a few $100s getting a part made, you're going to have a tougher row, right? You can do it. It's just harder. The further you go into proving an idea and the better results it's getting, the higher the royalty percentage is on a licensing deal, typically anyway. So But I think there's a bigger piece
Okay.
that a lot of people in the business world don't talk about. For us creatives, it's really critical to learn how to like develop that skill and not try to be the bookkeeper. Go hire a bookkeeper. You don't need
Right.
to learn.
Right.
Go hire the things you're really not designed to do. But the things that you're designed to do, if you don't do them, you're ripping everybody off. Ouch. You know, like, and it's not the best version of
Yeah,
you.
you
It's
don't
nothing
need to be
to
the
do with,
smartest person in the room. Why? You know?
yeah. Yeah, and when you're not actually utilizing the gifts that you're given as like by who you are, then really you're not living your best version of your life. You're not like I believe that when we're all happy and living aligned lives and really loving it, then everything in the world is possible to change.
Mhm.
And yeah. So validating ideas. You want me to go back to that?
We can. No, look, this is kind of expected here, right? We just kind of tangent and move into different areas. I would agree with you on the team side because we've seen, solo inventors come in here with what I think are absolutely stupendous ideas, and because of one reason or another, they can't continue with it. And that's it. The idea dies with them, right? They choose not to pick it up. But then we see people that have somewhat mediocre ideas and they do a great job with it because they've got the right people with them, right? They've got their branding expert. Now we have one. We didn't have one previously. We have had one for the past couple of years, which is great. They had a marketing person, which I'm still not the best at. They've have packaging people. They bring in a team and everybody works together. That's kind of the goal of product development, is to build that team. I always say, if you're the smartest person in the room, find yourself another room, because you don't belong there. Your goal is to be surrounded by people that know more about different things than you do, because that is literally the only way that you're going to succeed, unless you want to spend the rest of your life head down in a book and then finally make something when you're late in your life and won't have the opportunity to enjoy it.
Yeah, I've found in business over the many, many, many years that you can pay for things a couple of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Pay with time, you can pay with energy, or you can pay with cash. You can pay with money, right? And knowing which you have available and leveraging the one you have available is really important. And sometimes I've needed to, like, I thought I could learn QuickBooks because I'm really, smart and I learn software easily and blah, blah, blah. That decision ended up costing me a quote unquote extra $10,000 by the time we brought our CFO in and our bookkeeper, because they had to basically like redo a lot of things that had been stressing me out and had been a pitfall anyway. So that I'll say it, that arrogance on my part, that scarcity mindset of, oh, I'm gonna just, we'll make do, we'll get by, actually was really expensive.
It is. It is. We see a lot of people say, well, I can do it all myself. I can do it all myself. I can do it all myself. Okay. You know what? Go ahead. Good luck. I'll be here when you finally realize you can't. And it's okay to admit that you can't. Like, we've had therapists on here. We've had attorneys. We've had massive inventors on here as well. Like, we've had Ken Johnson on. We've had Chun Ung. We've had Lisa Lloyd, obviously. People that have made millions of dollars inventing, but even more to them about the public outreach and the way they're able to help others, right? Like Ken Johnson could charge thousands of dollars for an appearance in a show, right? Like, he didn't charge me a dime because he wants to help other people. And I think that's, to me, what generally separates the newbie inventors from the old school ones that have tried and failed before. They realize there is money, and money's great, and we love money, and that is the reason we do what we do. But reason number two, a very close second, is to actually help and inspire others, because we've already figured it out. Now we just have to help others get there too.
Yeah, I have a really big personal driver of helping people. And there is this other piece that, there was a gentleman I met at a trade show, and he had a really great little plastic widget. We'll call
Hmm.
it that.
Yeah.
I, a lot of the work that I do is under NDA, and even a discovery conversation, like a first call with us where we're really seeing if we're a fit and how to work together. Um, we do those all the time, but even in that, I treat them as confidential.
Right.
So anyway,
A lot of
um,
widgets will happen here.
yeah, there was this thing, and he had won an award for it. And I asked him the next day, I said, what are you going to do with this widget? And Dave told me, well, I'm going to make it in these 12 colors. And, here, and I said, really? And for
Oh
what
no.
it was, I was like, hmm. And he said, why do you ask? And I said, well, I'm curious. We've done some things. And I said, 12 colors, really? And he told me what they were. And I said, for what this is, if it were my money, knowing what I know, I would do three colors. I would do black, white, and beige. And I would not do any other colors. Like I would just put my money in those and go. And he basically kind of said, well, what do you know? And I said, well, I've re-merchandised 16 feet of Walmart stores, and they'll take 25 to 30% of my recommendations. When it comes to this part about merchandising and the strategy of a product, this is my lane, right?
Right.
And he said, oh, okay, well, and I was like, all right, he's going to go do what he is going to do, right? 14 months later, I got a phone call from him, Grant. And I remember exactly where I was sitting. And he said, hi, this is Dave so and so. And, I was wondering if you can help me. And what had happened is he put $122,000 into inventory on all these 12 colors, and nine of them were not selling.
Oh no.
And so what looked like a great decision to him was actually really expensive. We would never have had a client put that much in that much inventory. It's really a bad use of capital in the beginning. Strategically, there's some other ways to do things. And I asked him the colors that were selling, and black, white, and beige. It's not about me being right. It's about the fact that he now had all this inventory that literally we couldn't help him with. It
Right.
was like he was going to get pennies on the dollar, pennies if he got anything.
And if he doesn't fire sale it, it's going to cost him more to store the stuff than it is to just dump it. Yeah.
Exactly. And the next piece was that his daughter needed surgery, and all his money was in his inventory. And so when you're
Mm.
doing things at the beginning, a frequent mistake I see is people go, oh, well, my cost is going to be so much lower if I buy this volume.
Yep.
But it's an unproven product. So they're buying too much inventory, typically, instead of buying at a higher cost per item, and just don't make margin.
Yeah. Prove out your
Yeah.
market. If you break even, congratulations, you've proved out a market.
Right. Getting those early sales on something really matters. And if you have to do it at break even or just below it or
Mhm.
just above it, that's fine. You're not going to do that forever, right?
You
You're going
hope
to do
not.
it for a little bit. No, you're
Yeah.
going to do it for a little bit. So there's a whole bunch of different strategies we could talk about. I just think that, controlling your inventory and understanding the market you're selling to. The reason I was saying three colors was what this product was squarely in the promotional products industry. And the value of the value system of
Mhm.
someone who's buying a promotional product, of a company that's buying a promotional product, is the usefulness of the thing and how does their company look, right? Does their logo look good on it? Does
Yeah.
their brand get across? That's the thing they're interested in. And what he was doing was going against the psychology.
Right. He said, I can get more colors. Who wouldn't want more colors? Like, I have over 100 different colors here. The most often ordered colors: white, and I'll put it in order: white, gray, black, red. Hilariously, red is number 4. And then it drops off like a stone, right?
Right.
And then the fifth most often ordered color is blue. So those are the colors that we maintain in inventory at all times. Why? Because it's what people order. A lot of the other colors are for me, or they were ones that we needed for a job and I have left over. So the spool just sits here until I decide, I've got some personal stuff I need to print. And I don't care what color it is. I guess it's going to be that weird translucent purple right there.
Or the lime green or the whatever.
And then there are some special colors like this blue behind me. That is a one-off color. It will never be made again. And it is printing me, because apparently I think the song is about me. Wexter, I'm sure he'll show up in the chat at some point, makes minis for people, and that's one of his things. And he doesn't take commissions. He has to be at that point where he decides he wants to make one. So being my birthday, his gift to me was he made a mini grant. So I am making myself right now. And I already have an identical twin, so I don't need another one of me, but this one doesn't talk, so I'm okay with that. Love you, John.
That's awesome.
But, it is interesting to see how colors matter so much more to people than they say, oh, whatever color you want. Why is it hot pink? Well, you said whatever color I wanted. I'm going to pick the stuff that I want to get rid of. Like,
yeah. And when you think about a sample being at a trade show, if it's a 3D printed thing, the surface kind of matters. The scale matters. Like I said, we have this 3D printing company that's a client, and we were just walking through their entire trade show booth layout. And, like, okay, wait a minute. No, this is the maximum you can fit. And here's where the signage is going to need to be. And, oh, here's an innovative way to use that sample. And so there's ways to work with it, but it makes it a lot easier because the part that we were talking about was gray. Right. It's gray.
Gray is a great color for prototypes, and it is one of my favorites. Specifically, there are some grays that I really do enjoy because it shows detail. It allows you to picture whatever you want. And should I decide to photograph it on a white background, it is enough difference for me to chroma key whatever damn color I want so I can cheat. And then we can literally test a market without spending any extra money.
Plus, if you want to prime and paint it or something, you're not going through multiple layers and iterations there.
Right.
So yeah, they specialize in large format printing, like, a quarter panel of a car in one shot.
Right.
So it's a little different than the smaller scale, right? But it's very similar. So I'm happy to answer any more questions, or we can just keep rocking and rolling.
I don't see anything coming up in the chat too much. Zerno has asked me how many shades of gray that I have. It is unfortunately not 50. But I am seeing some things here other than all the happy birthdays, which thank you all for. Love everyone to like the stream as well. That'd be greatly appreciated. But I'm seeing something like we've got quite a few people that actually make and sell items in the 3D printing industry. So I'm going to pick on one particularly because I really like the product that he uses. His name is Paul, and he runs a company called Polymate 3D. They make 3D printed speaker kits where you can build a speaker with every functional component possible printed on it. Everything except the voice coil, which is copper wire, and the magnet, which is a magnet. Everything else is printed, and I've done a video on it, and they are phenomenal. For the amount of money they cost and the time they take to make, they're amazing. And I know he's trying to see how he can better figure all this out. So it's good to see that we have people here that are taking their maker hobby, turning it into a business, and coming to learn more about it. That is the purpose of these shows, is kind of, educate, have a little bit of fun, all of it at the same time. For me, it is kind of understanding what that idea validation looks like, because everybody thinks they have $1 million idea. The vast majority of them probably don't. So how can people easily well, there really is no, well, there's might be some easy ways for some, but how can people really look at validating that idea before spending a metric ton of money on it? Because idea validation can be very expensive.
Right. So, for example, Paul,
Mhm.
with the maker kits, basically, it's, the parts, the 3D printed parts for the speaker. Well, you got to go where your people are. Don't try and make the market. And by that, I mean, if you have to go build the pool of people that would be interested from scratch, from the ground up, that's more expensive than if you can find where they're already hanging. Okay. So, the cool factor of, oh, now do people take the parts and make it themselves? Or is he doing all the assembly for them?
So he offers pre-printed kits for education, but a lot of it is you buy the magnets and the wire, you get the files, and you go and print it on your machines. It is designed for makers. And I said these make really, really cool gifts, assuming your maker, person that's getting the gift understands it and is willing to go through some of the efforts of making it right. Because you can make a speaker and it might sound like crap because you can't center everything. And if they go through the effort, they sound really, really good.
Huh. Okay. So definitely promoting the sound,
Mm-hmm.
and, using video as well as audio for that. And I think that really getting where the audience is really important. It's kind of interesting because it's not a play where you could package this and, sell it in like a Joann's fabric stores
No.
where they
Yeah,
sell cricket cutters. Um, so this one is going to be a digital marketing play.
for sure.
And one of the most critical things you could ever do is get really good at marketing language and at understanding the psychology of who you're selling to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the psychology of who has bought it before and what their experiences are is super important in this case. I would also kind of find it interesting to look at some people who buy stuff from Etsy or that are Etsy sellers,
Right.
because that's kind of cool factor. Um, and depending on the price, that'll make a difference too on how you're going to market it. Um, and then if he's also selling the coil and the magnet,
Mm-hmm.
bundling all that together, really great. If the main market is like science labs or computer labs at schools, right? That now have a lot of 3D printers coming. A lot of schools have a 3D printer somewhere. It could be in anything from the automotive shop to the art program. We're seeing them pop up lots of different places. That is targeting the educators for their students to do these as projects,
Right.
right? And can the file be adapted so that they have an opportunity to teach some design? Like I would look at that. So I would look at the educator market really strongly and come up with the language that gives them what they need for a project for their students. And where are their eyeballs? Meaning, where are they putting their attention? Most educators right now still skew women, but most people that are in more of the maker side of things tend to skew male, right?
Yeah.
So you want to look at where's the intersection on the educator side. I think that you could drive a pretty good market right there.
I think he could as well. It's interesting. I've talked with other creators in the industry about what their analytics look like for male to female ratios, and we have, from everyone that I've talked to, the highest. We are over 30% female on this channel. Like, our viewership is over 30% female. And I would say it's Amber and my mother, but we have more than, 9 viewers or something, right? So
Yeah.
there is a lot to it. And Worst Peter is in the comments talking about, he said, to me, 3D printing is incredibly useful because I can touch my ideas while I iterate the design. I can try how it fits together with other parts without modeling everything in CAD. The haptic and physical aspect of it helps me leap forward in my designs. It works so much better for me than CAD or drawings on paper. And I get that. So many people need that touch and feel to it because until you know how to do a lot of that CAD modeling, that
Mhm.
imagination of what this looks like and then be able to spin it in your head and understand what it looks like from all angles is very, very difficult if you're not already that kind of person, right?
Mhm. Yeah. I was just talking about this the other day. When I was in like seventh or eighth grade, they gave aptitude tests, right? They
Mm-hmm.
were trying to figure out, the guidance counselors, like, what should we have this person become? Or where do they have skill set? And I remember, Grant, there was this part of the test, and it was like a pattern flattened out with dotted lines, and the question was, if you were to cut this out and fold it on every dotted line, what shape would it be? And I'm like, it's a cube, right? Of course it's a cube, because to me it was really obvious. I think three-dimensionally.
Right.
Even with that, when I studied jewelry making, and I'm a goldsmith and a platinum smith and
Oh,
a
really?
maker. Oh yeah. Yeah. They're published in magazines, awards kind of stuff. Laser welded platinum with pearls that you shouldn't be able to do things like that because you burn the pearl. But when I went into CAD, I had a very solid foundation
Mm-hmm.
in manufacturing technologies, how things are made, the thickness of a prong when you're putting a diamond into something. How thick does that need to be for it to be secure, right? The challenge I see with a lot of people that have never physically made something is they make things that literally like don't hold together.
Right. Yeah.
We would see a lot of, you could always tell when someone was a CAD designer who had never made something, because like the stone would fall through the bottom of the ring or
Yeah, their
fall out.
tolerances aren't there.
Yeah, the prong would break, if you looked at it wrong or something like that. So I agree that 3D printing is super important because it allows you to take a visually distorted thing on a screen. Because on a screen, when you do a ring, for example, the prong looks gigantic, but really it's like a millimeter, or whatever. So it takes that from conceptual into physical world where you can go, oh, wait a minute, you can cross-check yourself and make sure that it's actually functioning the way you thought it was going to function.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's super important. And 3D printing is a great approach for doing that economically,
It's hard to
quickly,
beat.
like amazing. And you
Unless
can
you
do
have a
undercolor.
shop, right? If you've got a shop in your garage with all the tools you could ever want and you're a hands-on, you're a welder, you're a fabricator, then 3D printing isn't the right option for you because you already got most of the tools. But the vast majority of people that are new to inventing or new to product development in general don't have that skill set whatsoever. Um, we got a question from Motiform Prototyping asking, a hands-on product development topic, can you comment on fail fast, which I think is one of the important methods to develop a good product?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in like duct tape a thing together to test it first, then iterate at the next piece. And I think that when you look at that fail fast mentality, right, it allows you to not get precious about your creation, right? It allows you to keep a speed and a pace. Part of the reason that we like being in a team and working in teams, or we like bringing team members in, is when you have team members expecting something on a timeline,
Right.
right? It actually keeps you on track,
Yeah.
and it creates more momentum and more flow in your project. So it's not just the skill sets, it's also the synergy, the accountability, that thing about geese when they fly in a V and they get to go farther and faster. It's the same with us humans.
Right.
So I think when you're doing fail fast and you're iterating quickly, kind of the Scrum methodology of things, you're really giving yourself a gift, because the pace of technology, the pace of development on things has accelerated so much over the past 10 to 20 years that if you don't iterate quickly, you're going to be out of the market.
Right. Right.
So,
Sorry, a print just failed behind me. It took my attention off.
that's
I
okay.
failed. I fell over. It broke. Did it break? Broke on my
Uh,
face. Okay. I say, did it break on my back? Because that would have been hilarious. The part knocked itself over, so you can see I'm
did you
apparently
do a
drunk already.
did you do a
Uh,
face plant back there?
no, I'm on the back of my head. Uh,
Oh,
that's okay.
oh,
It happens. So I had to log in. We were streaming that, so I had to log in and kill the stream.
that's
But
okay.
hey, that's kind of the part of when you do things live, and that means things happen in the background. There's nothing you can really
Yeah.
do about it.
But
Um,
hey, Grant, there's one thing I want to bring up,
sure.
and that's this. So in this fail fast, we're
Mhm.
not saying throw spaghetti at the wall and like whatever sticks is what works. No, no, no. I'm saying be strategic about it,
Yeah.
because the other flip side of fail fast, right, is that it can get emotionally draining to
Yeah.
continually fail or have the finish line move or whatever. I've been in that at different points in my business for different projects that we were working internally. And it's like you have to get good at the pick yourself up and not view it as a failure. To view it as the what did you learn out of it? And part of the way to do that is to do a very quick, like 5 or 10 minute um, brain dump of what you learned from it.
Mhm.
Like what was the value, what was the lesson, and then you got to keep going.
Right. Right. So a buddy of mine, Chris Krimitsos, you might know Chris. Do you know Chris?
I don't.
No. Okay. He's a big in podcasting and all that, and I know you of course have your own show as well. He has a book called Fail Forward, and I think that's the important part. I can fail fast all damn day, right? Go have me try to rebuild a car engine. I will fail, and I will fail very fast. But if I'm not failing forward, then it
Right.
doesn't matter. If I keep failing backwards and keep making the same mistake over and over and over again, then there's no learning process. And like you said, that learning process is the reason we tell people fail fast. But it's interesting because there is not a person that comes into our shop that says, I want you to help me fail. And yet, that's kind of what we have to do. Because if they instantly succeed, they got lucky. Because chances are, no matter how good you do something, something is going to go wrong. We have 3 projects right now. 2 of them are on hold because of client changes. And they've made a change to their bill of materials. And that means we have to go back to the drawing board and work with them on it. So that is what we call a fail on the client side. A fail on our side would be something is designed, it gets into the hand of their customers, and their customers don't like it. And that's why we say, if you want to work with us and you want to do this for real, you got to have your market validation done. If you don't have your market validation done, here are the steps to do it. That's not what we do, best of luck. Similar to, what you said, don't be the jack of all trades when it comes to inventing. Right.
Yeah. I really believe in fail forward, but I don't even view it as failure. I view it as iterations.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really love this phrase that a friend of mine uses, which is iterate your way to awesome. Because you
I
got to
dig it.
get an MVP out there. You got to get like the minimum viable thing, prove the concept. That's the sort of your duct tape version. And then the other things that happen are influences that come in, and there is a point where you stop iterating to get it into the market.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Seth Godin, or no, I guess it's some boxer. When it comes to sports analogies, not my thing.
Same.
Like everybody's got a strategy until they're punched in the face. You know,
I mean, that's fair, right? It's try getting punched in the face. It's not great. You will not like, well, I can't say that. We don't kink shame here. You probably won't enjoy it.
yeah, I've never had the experience, and I, knock wood, will never have that experience. I've always had great people around me, but I think the real intention is that you learn the lessons, you iterate, you develop the muscles of resilience for you as a business person and of resourcefulness. You were asking earlier about single solopreneurs, right? The biggest thing is that a team will help fuel your energy if you create the groundwork of a functional team rather than one that's working at cross purposes. We have a project we're working on right now. They're coming in, they're doing an all-day strategy intensive with us on Wednesday. And there's, let's see, 2, 3, there's 2 gyms, a Paul, Mark, it's a big team. There's about 12 people in it that I've met, and probably another 30 from the org chart that are doing development on the medical side of it, because that's not our expertise. But just in the core team, there's 12 of us. And you don't need a team that big, but you got to have somebody who understands the market, who understands how you're going to sell this thing, right? Who can actually act a bit as the voice of the consumer and a voice of the sales manager. Like, who are you selling to? Why should they buy it? And how do you talk to them?
Yeah, that whole, oh, everyone wants it. No, they don't. They don't. Please don't. That's the when people we talk about this fail fast and fail forward, and my biggest and best example is Apple. Looking at Apple computers, as much as I'm a Windows and Android fanboy, I'm apparently a fanboy of a lot of things, but Apple I am not one of. But look at their original logo and tell me they knew what the hell they were doing. It has Isaac Newton on it. And then they slowly refined it throughout the years to be a multi-billion-dollar company. I believe they're multi-billion. And they figured it out. Now, you don't have to be on the same level as them, but you also can't hold yourself to the same standards. I think a lot of people look at these major companies that are selling in retailers, right? Whether it's Walmart, Target, whatever, and they compare themselves directly to that. That goes to the imposter syndrome problem more. But how do we get them out of that mindset and say, look, you're probably not going to make it rich in the next 12 months, but that's okay because this is part of the process. And then how do you also get them ready for you're about to spend $100,000 question, right? And apparently it's Mike Tyson. My father is chiming in to let us know it's Mike Tyson.
Thank you. I was like, it's a Mike somebody, but yay, Dad, go, yeah. Dad.
Yep.
So how do you get out of the mindset of like the urgency, the quick win? Number one, you got to get really good at recognizing all the wins, not just the dollar figure in the bank account. When we have clients come, like we're going to do this strategy intensive on Wednesday, there's a use of funds section. And it's, okay, wait, now that we've talked through all these things, what is the actual money that's needed to hit certain milestones? And it's not $100,000 up front, and it's not this, and it's not that. It may be over time, like anybody who thinks they're going to put $10 into a business and that's the only money they're going to ever invest in it.
Got another thing coming.
Good luck, right? I've never seen a business that does that. There's a continual investing that's in scale with where you are and what you're trying to create and what the intention and the commitment is, right? But you shouldn't be going in and investing $300,000 or, $100,000 in something that's completely unvalidated. Unless you're building a new technology, you've sold off a company and you have a really great plan.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important distinction. It's not just, hey, let's just go spend a bunch of money and see what results happen.
And while I recognize the love of the Shia LaBeouf just do it, right? Just get started. We get this question a lot. And Henry Stofferhan, I might get that last name wrong. Henry is asking, I have an idea. How do I grow it? And my response was, It depends, because every single idea has a different path to growth, but it normally does start out with this identifying your target market, what they're willing to pay, and why they're willing to buy it. Right? Because if I can identify a target market and say, all right, my product is designed for, I'll use the literal one I'm working on called the Politician because it filters and produces hot air. It's a heater and filter combination designed for 3D printers. So it is designed for people that own 3D printers. Statistically speaking, they're male. Now we're getting a lot more females in there, but I'm not going to make it pretty anyways. It's utilitarian, and 3D printers are utilitarian. It's fine. We're going to match the idea of your machine. It is going to be a kit because the vast majority of people that are in the modding community want kits. It's going to be reasonably affordable. We're trying to keep it under $75. I'm really trying for the $50, and I'm doing one big win for all makers out there because I'm going to paint with a broad brush. Every one of us has a bucket of power supplies that we refuse to get rid of, and our significant others say, can you please get rid of it? You're not using them. We're not including a power supply with it, so they can go through their bin and find one and thank me later. And that also allows us to reduce the cost of the product, right? There's not a $10 power supply going along with it. You probably already have one. Use it. So we've identified, like, all right, $50 is pretty much an easy buy. It's a kit. Everyone loves kits. And if they don't want a kit, they can spend more and we'll have it pre-made. And we will have the option to buy a power supply, but it's just going to go to an Amazon link. Go buy it, ship it from Amazon. You don't need it from us because we recognize that the people don't always need them. We'd rather allow them to use their inventory rather than have to get another power supply that they may not end up using. Mm-hmm. That is how I see it. But that's because I've been in this industry for 15 years. And I'm probably going to get some things wrong. I'm okay with that. I'm 3D printing the entire thing except for 5 components and some hardware. So it's no big deal if I have to fail and iterate. I'm doing it mostly for myself. I'm fine with that. But what does that look like for someone that doesn't have this knowledge and doesn't have that experience?
Yeah. You mean, what does iterating look like for, like, if you're not the maker, but you're having a thing made? Right.
What does iteration look like, and how do you set those expectations accordingly? Because we have there are 3 separate rapid prototyping companies in here that I know of in the comments right now.
I love this. This is awesome.
So we're kind of giving away some of the secrets, but I think it's kind of important because I don't want, if you're going to get into business of doing this, I don't want you to end up leading people astray because it makes you look bad. It makes the industry look bad. And it means that, okay, you'll fix it eventually, but those people are never going to forget what you did to them.
There's a couple of things. Plus the thing you didn't mention is the success of your clients is part of how you build a successful business when you are involved in prototyping and engineering. And I know a lot of engineers, prototyping companies that have a whole shelving rack full of projects that never go anywhere, right? Because the idea wasn't validated at the beginning, or they ran out of steam, and there's like a million reasons, right? So how do you iterate quickly, effectively, cost-wise, as well as design-wise, right? Depends on what the iteration is that you're working on, because they're going to be in different levels. If it's the physical thing, right, depending on what it is, you may be involved in like cut and sew projects. We have clients that are doing cut and sew, and we're like, look, you need to just use a local seamstress and just make a bunch of things, right? Make like 5 and have a couple people road test it. We have other projects where they're more elaborate technologies. One, I mean, I could go into like, one is for people that are amputees, that are ex-military, and it is like a super duper wheelchair replacement that goes over multiple geographies and terrains, like massive.
Like a track chair. I've seen those before.
Yeah, like massive tech in that, right? So we've got cut and sew and that and everything in between. So if it's for color, definitely using colorized images of a
Yeah.
prototype or whatever. That's an iteration process too. Using surveys to really figure that out. You also are going to need to iterate your marketing messages. And the thing that you think is important frequently is not the final version of something, right? You could kind of like, I was just doing research in some data that we have for CVS stores. And I was like, that's really interesting that this competitive product, 65% of their sales come from 3 regions at CVS. 3 regions nationally produce 65% of the sales. I'm like, okay, those are the regions we need, right?
Yep.
So, but the message in each of those regions is different because I know the weather and why. So it's looking at some data and being able to extrapolate accurate impressions. Um, that's really important piece. When we do a strategy intensive, we actually do a complete research deck beforehand of trends in that market. What should the prices be? What do we kind of like, where is the thinking of that consumer? Not just consumer, but also companies, because we do some B2B.
Hmm.
So I think that looking at those pieces, however you get to them, is really, really important because it sets the direction.
Right. Right. It
So
it definitely does. We got a comment. This one hits home hard with me, but you know, it
good way or bad way.
we're a bit of both. Mike from Never Let the Machines Win. That's what NLTMW stands for. If you're in the chat, says most clients don't understand the iteration process and sometimes aren't happy to pay for it. That's the part that hits home. Uh, Managing their expectations before starting the project can be challenging. It is monumentally challenging because we have these invention help companies out there now that, and I don't have an ND. I'll use her real name. Her name is Joy. I won't tell you her product. She is the sweetest lady I have ever met. She's an older woman. Her son just passed. She's had this idea that made his life, and she built one that made his life better in his final months, right? And a parent never wants to bury their child, but regardless of that, she had a product that made his life better and she now wants to sell it. She is 30 grand deep with these BS invention help companies that have gotten her only a provisional. She paid 30 grand for a provisional. She has no CAD. She has no engineering drawings. She doesn't even have a copy of the provisional that was submitted. She's been scammed. And I felt so bad because I had to break the news to her. These companies don't set expectations. They just take money. The expectation they set is, we're going to get you in front of these people for licensing. And then they don't do it. So how the hell can we set expectations if there are companies out there that are taking advantage of people when they're at their weakest?
um, I think it comes down to the integrity of the industry, for one. And that starts with the
Yeah.
integrity of the individuals. And, we try really hard to vet projects before we step in. And we have really great relationships with different businesses. And, I do get asked about different companies or, like, oh, can you make a recommendation for a patent attorney? And so we have a list of trusted people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, you know, we've worked on things that have done really, really well, and we've worked on things that didn't, and so we're always really forthright in our conversations. So those discovery calls that I mentioned that we do, the free like half hour, 45-minute conversation to see if we're a fit, we're actually looking at what is the project, who are the people, do we get along, do we like each other, right? Like, because it for me, this is as much about who we are as humans together rather than being some massive company. We're not
Yeah.
Gunthy Ranker, you know, we're not ginormous business. We work with about 38 clients at a time. So, I think it speaks to that. So how do you manage expectations?
Right.
I think that there is an educational piece, and sometimes you have to let people go make mistakes because they're just not ready to hear it. Like the guy I mentioned early, Dave, where I was like, look, this is what I would recommend. And it's almost sometimes because it was a free perspective, it gets discounted.
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
it's free perspective of somebody who's worked on projects that sold $300 million in 3 years.
Am I
Like there's
allowed to be
some
salty
background
about that? Because I am a little salty about that.
there. Yeah. And, I don't want this to turn into, a complaint fest or anything like that, because I think that there is a way forward in it. Um, and I think that part of what we're talking about is the social media landscape of, everything's great all the time. And, I
Oh,
did this
yeah.
few days later, it was that. And that's you're that's not real. I just want to tell everybody that's not real.
No,
Okay.
it's not.
And
It's
and
not.
that instant gratification piece, man, we've gotten way deep in that in the US.
Like, to be clear, and I've talked about this before, but I think it bears mention here. I have a YouTube channel, obviously. And we are at 8,947 subscribers, which to a lot of people seems unattainable. What I can tell you is I am still losing money every month on this channel, and I love it. It is a loss leader for my company. It's a tax write-off too. But I love it because I'm able to share 8948. I'm now able to share my knowledge with others and lower that barrier to entry. This is why we do it. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that isn't fun. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that is a lot of cussing, a lot of strong words and hard conversations with both, staff to me to staff, and me to other people, and other people to me. It's not all that what you see, because if it was, it'd be a little depressing. um Product development is kind of that way too, right? It's not all puppy dogs and rainbows. You don't just give somebody money and then you don't hear from them for 2 weeks, then all of a sudden your product is done. Just because I tell you it takes 10 hours to make does not mean I'm going to have it done later today. It means it's going to take a few weeks to make. It's going to be staff meetings, it's going to be back and forth with clients. Really should stop using how many hours of time it's going to take, because that is the common misconception that we get with people is, oh, okay, so I can pick it up later today. No, you cannot.
Yeah, I
But
think having a very good process roadmap helps tremendously with
yes,
that.
yes,
With people understanding that you're putting creative thought into it as well. So you need the space for that. Your team needs the space for that, because it's the thing that actually shortens their time frame to market. You having the time to actually think a bit
hmm
on it. Because the best idea isn't usually the one that first pops out.
no, no, it's not. I know of one case where it was. That's Chun. Chun Ung is the I had one idea, but he was smart at this. He's the inventor of the rainbow loom, for people that don't know. It won Toy of the Year globally in 2014 and has sold millions of copies and has been seen on everyone from British royalty to the Pope. And a friggin' jacket was made for Jimmy Kimmel, okay? Like, and now Chun owns it. He bought it in a charity auction, which was pretty cool. That man talked about how he built this product because his daughter had asked him for something like this, and he only made it for her and her friends. He had the target market. He knew exactly what they wanted. He had the means to produce it, and so he did. And then it grew organically. He also talks about how being days away from losing everything and getting someone to believe in him so that he could get a couple of extra days to pay off rent or mortgage or something. Those stories, unfortunately, are few and far between. It takes money to make money, and it takes a lot of time. We generally tell people no less than 12 months. If you come into our world and you want to get a deal with someone, If you expect it to happen sooner than 12 months, you're going to need either a lot of money or a lot of time. Is that an accurate way to think with people? Because I don't want to set those expectations that it can happen too quickly.
It depends on the where the project is.
That's fair.
I'm sure the ones you see are really pretty early in the development process,
Very,
right?
very early.
And so we have clients that come to us in all stages. So we have early prototype, we have, like they've done a few of them, they've tested it. We have clients that are already up and selling in pretty significant places. And we do company turnaround work where they've been selling millions and something went horribly wrong and now we need to fix it. So for us, we have a full spectrum.
Right. That's fair.
And it depends also on, is it one person? Is it a team? Is it, because one person, it's going to typically take longer, unless it's something where you're going to move fast. Like if you're doing a licensing deal and you've got a prototype or a 3D model of it, and you get a good sell sheet going and you're proficient at the conversations, you could see a deal way sooner than 12 months.
Yeah.
But notice I said, if you have this and this and this, and you are good at this.
If you have the dream team, you need Michael Jordan, you need LeBron, you need Larry Bird. I mean, you need all of them because otherwise you're the person that has to make up for all of it.
Right. Or if you're willing to invest in learning a skill set. And developing yourself, and you have an aptitude for it. Because let's face it, we're never really great at things that we don't like.
Right.
Yeah. Like, we just aren't, I'm not designed to be a bookkeeper, right? Like, not my thing. Put me on stage in front of a bunch of people, have me talk about product, have me talk about design, business strategy. I'm awesome at those. Do a spreadsheet to the nth degree. I can do it, but I'm not going to be happy camper.
You got someone that's like, I love, you got the Ben Wyatt, you've got the I love spreadsheets.
Right. And I could say, here's what I need it to do. It needs to calculate this way. We got to be able to put these variables in. So we have a lot of tools. Like we have 24 different planning templates that we use that are developed internally.
So we deal a lot with solo inventors, and I know there are some solo inventors hanging out in the chat because I recognize some names and I did not know they watched the channel. So hello. How and oh, now they know this question's about them. I don't care. How can solo inventors look at building that team of trusted people? Because trust, we find, is one of the hardest things to obtain in a solo inventor. For those that watch King of the Hill, I find that a lot of first-time inventors are Dale Gribble. They are immediately concerned that everybody is out to steal their idea because they've read the horror stories, or maybe they've experienced it themselves. And I've always found that starting that relationship off of, I refuse to talk to you until you sign an NDA, it's just kind of a recipe for they don't have a team. This isn't going to go well. So how is that if you are a solo inventor that you can work at finding that team?
I think you have to listen to your instincts on the people, not just on do they have skill set, but you also want to look at, do they have the capacity? And by capacity, I mean, yes, time. Do they have the availability that you need? And also, what are the expectations? When you say, like, I've seen it around different business groups where people go like, oh, we're going to JV, we're going to do a joint venture, we're going to JV, but they never actually say, what does that look like?
Well, they use the word synergy and that just makes it better, right?
So the what does it look like level of conversation, I get asked to be on the board of things. And I'm like, what is your expectation of a board member? Right? Like, how much time are you expecting of me? What access are you needing?
Yep.
And is this the right structure for that? And some of that comes from I've been involved in some things that didn't go the way I wanted. I had early on, we had a project where we were partners on something, and we worked for 6 months, about 20 hours a week. It almost cost me my company. And I had to back away from the project. And it wasn't so much the money that we were putting in, but we were putting in a lot of intellectual property, a lot of experience. We had contacts and staff time. And I was having to pay all of that pre money going out. So I think sometimes when people ask someone to partner, they don't really think through what the other person's world is in that deal, like why and how does it affect them? Because it's as much about lost opportunities while you're working on the thing that is going to be the future thing. So you have to actually look at that. I say manage the expectation the best you can. Use your intuition with the soft people skills. If you don't have soft people skills, have someone in your life who does be in the meeting, who can sense whether there is integrity, whether there's genuine rapport being developed. We do discovery calls without a non-disclosure agreement in place.
Yep.
I let people say as much or as little as they want about their thing. Leave out the secret piece if you need to leave out the secret piece, all of that. And then as soon as they become clients, everything's under an NDA.
Yep. Same.
Because here's the other thing I would love everybody to know is the reason I don't sign an NDA before I've even talked to you about your project is things like I've seen 5 different devices for hanging a picture.
Conflicts are a big problem.
Right?
Yep.
So how do I know that the NDA that I'm signing before I even know anything about your project doesn't conflict with something we've already done, worked on, or talked to someone about?
But Amy, that's not my problem. I can't trust you. I need you to sign that NDA.
Well, you know what? Love you, but we don't do that.
Yeah. No, you know what I need you to do is I need you to find another company to work with because we don't work that way. And I know this because I had it happen. I used to just sign NDAs just to get people to talk to me at that point because it's like, look, I don't care. I'll help you out. Just whatever stupid paperwork you need to sign, fine. We both know that you're not going to enforce it anyways, but whatever. And it put me into a really bad bind with a really good client, and I had to make a disclosure about it, and that's not fun, right? Thankfully, the client understood, and we just told the person that came on, sorry, we have a conflict here, and I can't help you. We're going to go ahead and null and void your NDA. They tried to come after us. It was a thing, but it ended up working out okay in the end because I kept the client that I cared about, not this random person off the street. And that's not to say we don't care about the random people off the street, but this whole starting a relationship with demands, bad move. It's a bad move.
I think if you really want to talk to somebody about your project and you want to get a sense of them as a person or, like what their ethics are, their principles are, that's amazing. You don't need to disclose everything about your project to have that.
Yeah.
And to vet them a little bit. We have case studies, we have testimonials, we have, like all these different things. And I'm happy to have conversations before signing NDAs. Just know that the recommendations that I would give you aren't going to be as powerful potentially,
right,
as if I understood your project and where you are. For
Yep.
us, the most important question is always, where are you trying to get to with the thing? Like, what is your goal? If you could have it all your way, what do you want to be doing with this?
Making shitloads of money. Like,
we have some of that, but not everybody.
That's fair. That's fair. Some of them are like, I want to help people. But there are a lot of inventors who are like, I really don't care how we get there. I just want to make a ton of money.
Yeah. So I think it comes down to really being straightforward about what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do, and staying in your lane and treating that with respect. I'm not going to become a prototyping company. That's not what we do. Products
Right.
to Profits is not a prototyping company.
Hmm.
You know, we'd rather have really great relationships with other people who are way expert at that.
I agree. I agree. There are times to be like, we focus more on the rapid prototyping side of it because I believe in the, fail fast, fail forward. And then I like to hand it off to other people, right? Like, I don't have a great marketing person. That's not, look at my YouTube channel and tell me I have a great marketing person, okay? Like, I have evidence that, and look at my website. That's all myself, right? We had our branding guy help me set it up, but then the rest of it's all done by me. Why? Because I haven't found someone that we jive with, that understands us and understands technology. If you are a marketing person that understands us and understands the tech, you should reach out. I'm hiring. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and integrate a call to action here. This is what we do. Just like I remind people to like the stream and support us on Patreon if that's the kind of thing to do. Because I'm shameless at this point. You know, I am now officially in my mid 30s, so I'm allowed to be shameless. To me, this whole system breaks down to a couple of things, right? Um, who is it that says it? It's one of the sharks. People, processes, and products, right? And your products, honestly, like, the product does not matter. There are some people like, well, you have to care about the product. I don't have to care about your product. I have to care about selling it and making it for people. There are some that I do care about, but there are some it's like, yeah, it's a cool product. I'm not your target market, so I don't understand it. But I'm the guy that's going to help you make it real. My team is going to help you make it real. We're going to do all of those things. But we have this problem. To me, it is very rampant in the Tampa Bay Adventures Council, so I should be clear about that one. Is this old school method, an old school thought process of, I'm going to come out with this idea, I'm going to go to market with it, I'm going to sell millions, and I'm going to retire. And according to the 3 patent attorneys that we've had on here, that is dead. It is not, well, it is dying. It is not often anymore that getting your product to market as a first-time inventor makes sense. And I know you disagree with me on that. And I'd love to kind of talk about that some more.
Yeah. There's a couple of things about business that I think involve a maturing process.
Yes.
Right. And that only comes with having been through things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think everything needs a patent.
Agreed.
I don't think that that's the right approach for some things. I think it's a great approach for something. Like, I'm agnostic on patent, no patent, etc. I'm like, look, what is the thing you're trying to create? What is the product? How is the speed to market? Because some things are so trend, you shouldn't bother. Right. And so it depends on the how you want to make money strategy, what you would be doing. Okay. I talk with people and they say, well, I want a licensing deal, but I want to retain all these levels of control and input and stuff. And I'm like, well, that means you want to build a company.
Yeah. Do you really want a licensing deal? You sure about that?
And for us, it's not about get a licensing deal. It's about get a licensing deal that performs.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's a different thing, right? So you can have a licensing deal and still not make any money from something, right? You can have a licensing deal that makes you a lot of money. But most inventors that have retired from licensing have become serial licensees. Like they license multiple items. It's not usually one.
No.
And now we do have a client that is retired on Maui from the profits from his product.
Hell yeah. Now, if that's not a life goal, I don't know what is.
He works 9 days a year.
Nice.
And I can't divulge exact numbers and things, but let me put it this way. The man's retired and he's 60 years old, but he did not go for licensing right away. He actually used our strategy of we built the business for, I think it was about 7 years before he did licensing, right? Took it from one store to 1,400 stores in 14 months, 8x to the profit margin, all kinds of things like that.
That's money.
We architected it so that, first off, we saved them $250,000 in our first day with them. Like, saved $250,000 that they didn't have to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, no, no, no. The strategy you're trying to do is going to cost $250,000 in capital. You don't have that and you don't need it, and it'd be bad. Don't do it. So, what I'm trying to share though is they built sales,
Right.
right? Someone else just the other day in a post was saying, oh, you need to build direct to consumer sales for like 10 years before it's even worthwhile for you to talk to a retailer. And I'm like, no, we have a client that's been selling for 18 months. They've already been selling in CVS. And they
Yeah.
just got
10
invited
years.
last week to add another 2,000 stores.
If someone wants 10 years experience on DTC, direct to consumer, then what they're asking for is $5 million, right? They're asking you to spend, because there's very little way that you're spending much less than that over the course of that time frame. And yeah, you'll have profits, but you have to look at that is a monumental expenditure of cash. And what a lot of people don't recognize, and I'm going to mention it because I can, a company that is, I just unboxed their printer yesterday, the Bamboo Lab X1 Carbon, has been out for about 6 months now. Brand new company. They did a Kickstarter, which is normally the death of a 3D printing company. They raised almost 6 million or almost 7 million, but it was almost a very large million number, right? That would normally kill a business, right? Going from, oh, we're just a couple of guys from DJI creating a 3D printer. Oh my God, we just sold 6 million or pre-sold or whatever the hell you want to call it on Kickstarter, would normally kill a company because the economies of scale don't add up. Son of a bitch, they're delivering.
Well, we have clients that have successfully funded in Kickstarter and, back in the day, Indiegogo and, whatever. So, and all of them have delivered on their campaigns. We've only ever lost one backer for $20 ever. Because there's some pieces in the process, but you're right. The economy of scale is really important. But really what we see happen is they haven't, campaigns that are successful are really good at marketing, for one, and they have an accurate expectation of costs, and they've managed the expectations of their backers really well. Right. So you can have delays, but you gotta be responsible about it and be in communication about it instead of hiding from the reality of it. And you enroll people in that vision. So I think that's really important. The piece about D2C for 10 years before going to a retailer, what they're actually asking is for you to have a sales level at a certain amount, right? But that's not accurate information that was being bandied about in some Facebook group, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is not accurate that you need 10 years of D2C sales.
No, it's not.
We've done product where there was one in existence before a conversation with Walmart. Walmart purchased it. The first order was $1.78 million with 52% profit margin in it.
Just a little bit. Just a good Lord have mercy.
And it was an item, no joke. I think it was $3 retail. And It was $1.78 million wholesale on the first order. And it did well enough that it actually got picked up and was in the regular section for at least a year. So that was just the first order number. So there's some things to do, but you don't need to stay in D2C for 10 years. Matter of fact, we have a new group that's starting up. It's called the multi-channel marketing machine. Mm-hmm. And it's all about multi-channel marketing and multi-channel sales. Because I think some people stay in the small piece too long, thinking they need to be bigger before they do the bigger.
But okay. There's a fear there, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are afraid of taking that jump of, I'm making okay money now. If I take this risk, I'm risking everything. For what? Yeah, okay, a potential profit of 3-4x. But if it loses, I'm out all of this money, right? They look at the potential loss, and it's like, okay, you're not wrong. Your risks are there, but do you believe in yourself and do you believe in your product? And when someone comes to me with that mindset, the answer is really no. Or maybe they need some help, right? Sometimes
I,
like they need a little help to
I think
understand.
they don't understand how to limit the risks
That's fair.
and that you can limit the risks.
Mhm.
Like we had a project that we did, it was selling to Michael's craft stores.
Okay.
And it was, we did design work on it and a whole bunch of stuff, but it was an end cap, which is the piece of pegboard at the end of an aisle, like on a main aisle where you see products at the end and then you turn down and you look at the whole assortment.
Mhm.
Well, it was an end cap and they wanted $360,000 for the space of this end cap, right? Well, that's what they asked for. That is not anywhere close to what we did, right? And the product was we knew it was going to do really well. So that was negotiated down to, I think it was $120,000, right?
That's
And
a
it
big
was
move.
negotiated also the timing, how it would happen, like the whole thing. There were a lot of pieces in that deal that were up for negotiation. But if you didn't know they were up for negotiation, you look at 360K, like what? Right? And so I think that not understanding the game that you're playing factors in, not seeing the upside, not understanding how to lower the risks and still do the deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Really important. And sometimes the other thing that happens is when you're doing a larger deal with a corporation of any kind, everybody, I don't care if you're licensing, I don't care if you're selling to them, please, for the love of your family, your mental well-being, read the paperwork.
And get an attorney to
Oh,
to to translate things you don't understand. Don't
right.
just look, this isn't an end user license agreement. Don't just sign it. I
Yeah.
got yelled at on my stream yesterday for reading an end user license agreement, finding a binding arbitration clause. All of us laughed at it, and then I refused to connect the machine to the internet on the stream, and now I get hate comments on that video saying, "You didn't connect it to the internet, so you didn't update the firmware. It's your fault." I'm like, no, it's not my fault. I looked at a product that I paid $1,600 for out of the box. If they're not shipping it with up-to-date firmware, that's on them, not on me. Um,
We've seen things where there was a non-disclosure agreement, since we talked a little bit about non-disclosure agreements.
yep.
It was with a very well-known hardware kind of company
Okay.
that someone wanted to do a licensing deal with. And there was this one clause that was in fine print. And now one of his partners is actually an attorney and had read this agreement, right? But Mike sent it to me to take a look at before he went to this meeting. And I said, oh, by the way, you need to do this. You need to send a letter, mark it this way and whatever, before you go. Like you need to do that tomorrow because your meeting's in 2 days. And he goes, okay. And I said, you need to send it registered. And he's like, why? And I said, because there's this clause that unless you notify them in writing, it's not covered by this.
Yep.
And he's like, what? And I said, yeah, anything that you've shared previous to this will not be covered by this NDA. And it's going to look like this and this. And he goes, my partner didn't even find that. And I was like, yeah, for this space, like, I don't even know how much a certified letter is right now. For the price of a certified letter and
$5
an
or
hour of your
$6.
time,
Yeah.
you need to do this. And he goes, I'm on it. And it was literally a hole that you could run like a Mack truck through. Right. And so I'm not saying this to be scary.
No,
I'm
it's
saying it to illustrate, read the paperwork.
Yeah.
Like read the paperwork. Do the math.
Well, Amy, what if I can't afford an attorney?
Read the paperwork and think while you're reading. Like
I'm playing
just,
devil's advocate here.
I know, but if you, you know, that's just kind of the nature of it. You have to be responsible for yourself and not to be scary about it, but just be logical. This is a business. When you are going into those kind of deals, you are in a business, whether your
Yep,
business is licensing deals or your business is build the company and sell the product, it is still a business
indeed.
and
Indeed.
you can learn it. Seriously, I was originally a painting major. I have a bachelor of fine arts in jewelry design, right? Like, if I can learn business, seriously, anybody can learn business.
How much does the resin printing industry piss you off? You're like, I got a bottle of casting resin over here that probably upsets the hell out of you, doesn't it?
I don't care. There's room for all of it, there's room for all the different technologies. Some of the things I most love about 3D printing, man, you can do undercuts.
Yeah.
You can do undercuts. That was like revolutionary. And I love its application for mold making. And my background is I actually used to solve manufacturing defect problems in factories in a couple of different countries
Mhm.
and sales management. And so I'm squarely in the manufacturing side of things with a foot in the business marketing and the how are you building the business.
Mike from Never Let Machines Win says, without distractions, take the paperwork to a library and sit and read there. And I'm going to add, leave your phone in your car, right? If you need to, just stay close enough so your smartwatch or whatever is connected to it. You need to read the damn paperwork because you don't want to find yourself having an oh shit moment and then have to hire an attorney.
To
Worst
try and
Peter,
undo,
worst
to
Peter,
try to undo. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, have fun suing a multi-million dollar retail brand. I wish you the best of luck because it is not going to be cheap, and they will bury you in paperwork for the sole purpose of getting you to go away. Uh, Worst Peter says if you can't afford an attorney, you definitely cannot afford having an attorney. I would say the couple grand it's going to cost you to have an attorney review it, and that's an expensive attorney review it. To make you potentially $100,000+ is a literal no brainer. And if the person can't see that, that's penny wise and dollar stupid. Um, Mark Bass says the journey, the story of my 3D printing journey is undercuts. Don't undercut everybody on the price, but you're right. We got a friend who owns a retail shop up in North Carolina sent a part over, said, I cannot print this for the life of me, and they want to go into injection molding. Can you review this and make sure it's okay? I looked at it and said, her name is Beverly. I said, Beverly, there is a massive undercut on this unless they're going with a hydraulic mold for something that is literally a tenth of a millimeter thick. Like it's nothing,
Oh
but
my
that'll
gosh.
that'll that'll cause such a suction in your mold that you'll never get it out.
Yeah.
I said, what do you want to do about that? She said, they already have the mold cut. I said, no, they don't. They're lying to you. There's no way they'd have this mold cut because there's not a shop in the world that'd be able to make a thin piece of metal like that without some sort of wire EDM to do it. Or they're going to 3D print the mold and that part's gonna end up falling off anyways. It'll be so thin, it's just gonna break off. I said, they've clearly messed up on their CAD. She said, no, they haven't. I said, okay, here's your file. I sliced it up for her. I said, here you go. It's not gonna print well, but because it has a hanging undercut, you're gonna have a problem. But yes, that is a huge benefit, and that's why we have two different designs. So when we work with companies, we ask them, or individuals, we ask them very clearly from the beginning, what are your goals? Are you trying to sell it and go to market, or are you trying to license it? Because if you're just trying to license it or you just need a patent or whatever you need for it, then we design for additive, right? We don't design for hardcore manufacturing. If you want to go to market with it, and you have the money, you can prove to me you have the money, we will design for manufacturing, because it's a whole different design for AM is so much easier because it really doesn't matter. You just kind of do it. Design for manufacturing matters so much more. There's a lot of, you can't have sharp edges. You can't. It's not a thing. And if you say, well, Grant, Legos have sharp edges, go look at the story of how Lego makes their molds and all that before you say, oh, Lego could do it. Well, you're not Lego.
Well, you touched on something. I just want to interject for a second here. We were talking a little bit about the process and how do you manage expectations, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very common that people need to understand the process, right? That a prototype does not mean they're ready to go to production.
Yes.
Right. There is this stage in the middle called DFM, design for manufacturing, which is tech specs and technical drawings. And okay, does it have an undercut? Is the mold going to come apart? Do you need a multi-cavity mold? Do you need
involves engaging a manufacturer to talk to generally.
How is this thing going to be built, right?
Yep.
And so many times people don't even understand that is a step, right? So I just want to bring that up for everybody who may watch this in whatever part. So you typically are going to go from a first article prototype, which is something you've made at home, you cobbled it together, you had a seamstress sew it, you sketched something out, and then a 3D printing person took it, did an additive manufacturing process. So you have a thing. Okay. So you have that.
Your widget.
Yeah. It's basic. And it's the first part of proving how something works. Does it function the way you want? Right. So let's talk about that. You got that. Then you might have a couple different versions of prototype because you discover it didn't function quite right. Mm-hmm. Or, that we should add this button or that thing. And then you're going to do a few iterations there. And then once you go this is the final function, then you're going to go into engineering and design for manufacturing. Typically, This is how we see it. You're nodding yes. So pretty accurate. And if you're doing something that's got electronics to it and it's got a plastic housing of some shape, right? You're going to have tooling for the housing, and you're going to have tech specs and circuitry and electronic guts for the make it all happen inside the housing. Those may or may not be the same engineering teams, right? And the electronics people need to fit the stuff into the housing, right? So they need to talk to each other and see each other's work and go, oh, I can't. The housing people will say, oh, we can't add it because we have this size constraint. And then the tech people are going to go oh, but I need this because without that controller inside, it won't light up the button it needs to light up.
Right.
Whatever. I'm just pulling random things. And then once all of that is in place and you got all the tech specs and it's all working, then you're ready to go to manufacturing and you can get a reasonably accurate manufacturing quote. That's if you're working on something technical.
Right.
Okay. So I just wanted to outline that for everybody because we've talked about proof of concept, and proof of concept happens in those various stages. You can show it in rough forms. You can do survey. There's a lot, but if you're going to show it to people, please don't let them know it's your thing. Please just say, hey, what do you think of this thing? Because you'll get more accurate information if they don't know it's yours.
And don't ask friends and family unless you have that uncle or someone that plays a really good devil's advocate or just doesn't like you. Your friends and family are gonna blow smoke up your ass generally and lead you down a path that might not be good. Now, if you have the right kind of friends, they might be fine. But generally speaking, your friends and family want to see you succeed, and they're going to tell you whatever they need to tell you to make that happen, not knowing that actually they're hurting you. It's not their fault. They're just trying to support you and do what you want. But you got to ask random people. Was it you that said airport was the best place to get a random group of people? Was that you?
We've done things like that. We have a client that actually, the one who's retired on Maui, by the way, he actually has sold his product going through security lines at the airport.
Someone,
Like,
and if it wasn't you,
like,
then I don't remember who told it to me, but they said the best place to go to get the most random interactions with people that you can, and the most broad spectrum of people possible, is an airport. Now,
oh, yeah.
pre 2001, much easier to do than it is now. But, and of course, pre 2020, much easier to do than it is now. So there are some things on there, especially with human malware being what it is these days. You can't say the C word on YouTube. They just don't like it. So we always say human malware. Don't ask me why, it's a thing. But asking people questions like that is so important. I've always told people go to Walmart because you'll find random people there, but the Walmarts are in location, so they target a specific demographic of people, right? So don't just go to Walmart. You got to go to Walmart. You got to go to Target. You got to go to Whole Foods. You got to go to these different places in different areas and know where your target demo is going to be. But if you don't know what your target demo is, airports are freaking brilliant. Whoever told that to me, and I believe I told him, you are a genius, because I have never thought of that. And I live in Tampa. We have Tampa International Airport.
Right.
I've just never
it works. The other place is shopping malls.
Yes.
If you're doing something fitness,
they still exist.
Yeah, they do, believe it or not. Here in California, we have a few that are really high end. So it depends on what your product is too, which mall you would go to, and some, even people that fly, there's a certain demographic of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's a little different than it was. Because you deal with people that are more likely to be risk takers. When the C word was happening, right? They were risk takers if they were in an airport, or they were super committed and had a big problem that they had to be in a particular place to solve. So there's all kinds of things. Let's talk more. So what else we got?
Let me see. I had a little docket of stuff. We talked about value ideas, basics of product development. Let's talk about our biggest mistakes that are often made and biggest successes that are often made by people that are inventors. If we want to talk about our biggest successes and fails, we can. But this it's very hard. I know it's hard for me to talk about our wins and losses like that because they're all NDA. So it's like, yeah, we had one that did this, and that's all I can tell you. So what are some of the biggest mistakes and biggest successes that you see out of people that are first time in this industry?
I count successes in a couple of ways. So caveat to that. A success is a lesson well learned, as well as, money showed up in the bank account,
right,
etc. And when you're in the process, sometimes it can feel like success is a really long way away if you're focused on only defining your success by the end result.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You got to actually get good at finding the wins along the way to keep yourself motivated. Otherwise, it's just, an endless march, and that's not fun. So some of the biggest pieces, wow. Oh my gosh, I actually just got chills. I think one of the biggest successes is becoming the person you want to be. Not just the money, but the quality of person you want to be in the world and what you have envisioned for yourself. Like, becoming that is probably the most massive success, because it's you defining success on your terms, particularly if you can do it by separating yourself from the rest of the culture and come to what it is for you that would have you have an experience of your life having expanded, like 10 times. And so there's that. For inventors, the biggest successes I see really come down to how they bring team members in. and their ability to develop that muscle is really important success along the way to the bigger money pieces, right? I've had clients, let's see, we had one, they were getting kicked out by the buyer when they got introduced to us. Instead of getting kicked out, they got a $15 per unit price increase. And
Nice.
the account doubled to $2 million in a year instead of going to zero. Right. And the things that were happening there, packaging, massive problem for them. So one of the big mistakes I see, because we've talked a little bit about Apple today, is people go, "Oh, I want my packaging to be like Apple's." I'm like,
Probably
you
can't afford it.
have like the marketing budget to make your packaging meaningful when it's that minimalistic is a lot higher than most inventors have.
Yeah,
So
Apple's marketing budget is more than most people will ever make in their lives in 1 year.
yeah. So when you look at, say, an iPhone box and it's just the picture and it's beautiful and it's, first off, the printing processes that they are using to produce that package are inherently expensive,
Oh yeah.
right? The price point for the phone is a lot higher than most inventors' typical products, right? So keeping in your packaging cost in mind as you design it is really important. Keeping the idea of how do you make the packaging meaningful to your customer is really important. How does the package talk to them, right? And sometimes people go, "Oh, well, I'm only doing direct to consumer, so packaging's not that important," right?
Mm-hmm.
As the sales already happened. I'm like, no, you want the repeat sales. So you don't build the Taj Mahal of packaging, but you need to have it look credible so that people trust the thing.
Right. Right.
Right. Like to get to the speaker example we used earlier with Paul, right? It was Paul.
Yeah.
Um, look at, are you encouraging people in the instructions? Right? Like, what's the part where they're going to get frustrated or do it wrong? And are you going to encourage them right then in the instructions?
This is why I love Prusa 3D printers. Prusa fanboy here, and not self-described, Facebook described hater of bamboo by their Facebook group that doxed me last week. That's been fun. But Prusa's manual is thick. Okay, it's for a 3D printer build. It's a very, very big manual. All the pictures are full color, but it's step number 2 or step number 3 that talks about the biggest problem with these machines is an inadequate or overzealous consumption of gummy bears. The printer comes with gummy bears, and it comes with a bag of Haribo gummy bears. And throughout the build process, it tells you to stop, take a break, have a measured amount of bears, and then if you choose to do so, continue. But this is a good stopping point. And I look at that and say, if they thought of that, imagine all the other things that they didn't miss, right? Imagine all the places that they obviously caught something that was going to be tough and made it for you. They use a picture of Joe Prusa's face as an icon of, hey, you might want to pay attention to this. And if you don't see it, you can skim it, look at the pictures, do it, and move on to the next bit. They took so much time in building that manual that it makes the build process fun. And it's like the first time you do it is like a 12-hour build. That is a non-trivial amount of time. But you don't hate yourself when you're done with it. I have built a myriad of printers from China, and I hate myself by the time I'm done with it. Like, you gave me 1 page front and back to do all of this?
Right.
Get out of here. I'm looking for a Prusa manual, and I don't see one immediately handy, but they're phenomenal. Suffice to say, they're phenomenal.
Yeah. So that get in the world of the person who's reading your instructions, right? That's what they're doing. There was years ago, I was driving around Washington, D.C. on the Beltway, and I saw the best traffic sign I have ever seen in my life, right? It was massive construction and it was rush hour. And I'm like, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is just going to be horrible. And I'm driving, and you know those big blue signs, like the big ones, right? They had one of those, and it said, "Caution, prepare for sudden aggravation." And I mean, I just had to laugh, right?
I
And
love when traffic organizations get a little snarky in their messaging. It's beautiful.
they're like, look, you're going to be aggravated, but caution, prepare for sudden aggravation. And so when you do that inside an instruction manual, or you have a little fun energy to it, or a little caveat, or a little like, hey, you're on step number 2 out of 5. Great job. Like, it sounds trivial, but it's not,
It's not. Yeah.
because we need the quick wins as humans.
And Paul saying I've done a poor job in working hard to fix it, because I've talked with Paul about this. I want to see videos, right? An instruction manual for his product would be really tough. It'd be really tough. And you could do photos, but those photos should be screen grabs from a video with a QR code that when you scan it takes you to that exact section of the video so you can see that step. And we've talked about it before, and if he doesn't do it by the time I get my jerry rig everything style set, which is a top-down camera, you don't see me, you just see my hands on a white table, I'm just going to do it for him. Because I want to build more of his speakers. I think they're a lot of fun, and they look dope for events when we take them, because like there's a 3D printed speaker and it's playing royalty-free music because I'm not a heathen. But it is that little thing. It's like, okay, only because I know how to recone a speaker was this process a little bit easier. But I can imagine someone's first time doing this might be a little challenging. And I think I know he and I have discussed this before, but it is very tough to say, how can I make it so the average person can look at it when I'm not the average person? I think the sign of a good product developer is that they can put themselves in the shoes of your clientele, of your potential clientele, and say, what do I need to know to make this successful?
Mm-hmm. We do a lot with brand voice. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is the brand voice? Matter of fact, tomorrow I'm doing a whole analysis on a brand and their new site and how it's fitting with the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about those big mistakes and big wins. I think the big wins come from doing packaging really well. And it doesn't have to be the most elaborate package in the world. It just needs to be the right for your market, for the price point of the product, etc. One of my favorite examples of packaging, I have it still in storage because I just loved it, was when we were painting an entire wall with Idea paint. I happen to love a good whiteboard surface, like massive whiteboard.
The Better Three Quarters is the same way. I will send her deals on whiteboards, and it's what she needs in her day sometimes.
Oh, no, we painted an entire wall. I had an 8-foot by 10-foot whiteboard wall.
I've never had success with that paint. The paint is so bad.
Oh, no, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Okay, then you've been using different paint than I have, because the whiteboard paint I've tried sucks.
Idea paint.
Okay.
Idea paint.
Noted.
The original, like, Idea paint formula, like, amazing. But their package is these two like, there's like a little paint can, and then there's another little can, and it says the instructions, but that part of it, first off, it's really cute. They've got great graphics on it. And the label says this and that, right? The 2 jars are labeled this and that. And the instructions say, pour this into that. I love that. Like, it's not even technical.
Well,
it's not.
Do you
like
also love this, though?
What?
Well, you love that. Do you love this?
I loved them both equally.
Well, that's good, because it makes you giggle, right?
I was like, pour this into that. And then when they give you a sign to like post on the door saying nobody's to touch this for 48 hours, as tempting as it is, you're not to do that. And it's got a little sass and a little bit of attitude to it. So because they're selling to highly creative environments, it works.
Yeah.
If they were trying to sell me a medical device and they did that, I would be going like, y'all might have a little bit of a misunderstanding, right? because they're looking at it from my perspective of who am I,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I think that that's always a win. Some of the other really big wins, oh my gosh, there's so many. Um, I really liked the one where we doubled the account in Lowe's and they started getting phone calls from Home Depot. That was pretty amazing. Um, the big failures usually come from running out of steam.
It's
Um,
mental steam, right? It's always they lose faith because it's not hitting the marks they want.
Yeah. One of the questions that we actually ask before we do a strategy intensive in our welcome questionnaire is, what can we say to you when this doesn't go the way you wanted? Or
Oh,
when it
that's
gets
so
hard or you get discouraged? What do you want us to say to you? And I remember we had a client years ago and she oh and we also ask what's likely to cause you to hit a speed bump, right?
mm-hmm.
Or I forget how we phrase it, but it's basically what's in your life that's likely to cause a problem, right? Because we just want to know it
Mm-hmm.
going in, right? And she said that she was likely to get distracted because of a couple of things. And then the next one was she said that what we could say to her was tornado hitting Kansas was the phrase. I remember that because it was like,
You have a
okay.
safe word with your clients.
Yeah, it was like she said that if she got distracted and started spinning out on the sides, that I was to say tornado hitting Kansas. I'm like, okay. And we were in a meeting and it was more advanced in her project. And she was like, lots of things were going on. And she was like this. And I looked at her on a video conference like this. I went, okay, tornado hitting Kansas. She started laughing so hard she almost fell off her kitchen stool that she was sitting on because she's like, I never thought you would actually say it. You told me it would work. I'm using it. And she's like, that was perfect. Okay, great. So I think some of that, like having a sense of humor, a sense of play, helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The things that create the failures are usually not listening to market feedback, not understanding your pricing, your cost structure,
Yeah, I don't
and
care what you want to sell
margin.
it for. You got to know what it costs to make it.
It's a combination. When I say price model, for everybody who's hearing this, I don't mean what is your cost, what is your selling price. I mean your price model. That means your cost, the retail perceived value price, what you're actually selling it for. If you're going to use a distributor or a wholesaler, what that price is. And you want to understand your margins all along the way. And so we have a tool that we use for that we developed, like literally lets us put in all these different variables. And there's a lot of things that you should build in that people frequently leave out. And then they don't understand why they're barely breaking even when they're in volumes. Okay. So it's those assumptions that you're making that need to get factored in that usually are missed.
Mm-hmm.
So is that helpful?
It is for me, and I'm sure it's helpful for others here, right? It is often that we find it's like it's why I'm building a learning management platform to solve these
Mhm.
problems in because like I see the same thing over and over and over and over again, and a lot of it is because these are first time inventors, they're local, they've lost their jobs or they found themselves with some extra free time. This is exactly what it was during the height of the human malware, right? We saw a 59% increase in inventors, first time inventors coming in. I said, well, I'm not an idiot. I have to build something that meets them where they need to be met.
Right.
And a lot of it was, what the hell do we do? Right? Some of them, they just kind of needed to be comforted and told that you can do this, but here are the things it's going to need to take, and here are the steps that we take to get there. Here's the time frame, and if it doesn't work for you, that's okay.
Yeah.
But here's what it's going to take. Um, yeah, it is hard to accept those costs sometimes, and just it can cost you all the money in the world. Don't have it cost you your family, your loved ones, whatever, because can't I don't say you can't buy it, because I'm sure in some places you might be able to, but generally speaking, you can't buy it. And don't be that person that tries. It is going to be tough on relationships. That's the hardest thing about building your product, is that it's going to be tough on your relationships. And you have to set those expectations accordingly. And you have to make sure you're taking care of yourself as well as others at the same time.
There's a great book by, it's one of the yogurt company founders. I want to say it's Stonyfield Farm founders. The wife wrote the book, and it's about how to communicate with your spouses and your families when you're building a business. I think the last name is Hirschfield. Because one of the things that's really important is you're going to need support in different ways. Function in families will change as you build a business. If you're already a business owner, you already know this, right? But it's a really great eye-opening thing, because you have to bring your family along on the journey, meaning like let them know what they can expect and where you need to change how you're interacting. And maybe you're not available on Saturday mornings anymore, or maybe you are, or you have more free time and they can expect you to be around more, right? But like, if you don't communicate it, they're not going to know it. And the fear that lurks in their mind is a problem for you, right? So that's what I would say. I met my husband while I was building this business. And so he knew really clearly going in. I was like, I wasn't in a place that I was going to put time into, like really, really, really maturing a relationship for about 18 months. But he knew that, right? And I like was very clear about it. And it was the right choice for me. So you got to make choices that are aligned with you. I want to make sure to mention, if anybody's listening and you want to talk about a product, you want to launch it bigger, we have discovery calls. We also have a really cool cheat sheet on our homepage. So you go to products2profits.com, which is products, PRODUCTS, and then TO profits, PROFITS.com. And you can get the, I think it's like the retailer one that we have up right now. We have a couple of different free PDFs, but you can also sign up to get a discovery conversation with me. And that'll be half hour, 45 minutes, talking specifically about your project and how we can serve it and if we're a fit. It's not a big sales pitch. You will get action items from right now to where you want to go. So, and then you get to evaluate if you think that we're people that you want to work with.
I've been trying to find the book. That's why you're noticing me like not paying attention. I'm trying. I'm listening, but I'm trying to find the book. Friggin' Mike found it faster than I did. It's called For Better or For Work.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's by Meg Hirschberg.
Okay. I was close.
You were very close. Yeah. And thank you to Henry for becoming a YouTube channel member supporter. Thank you for that. But that the book is $20 on Amazon, used as low as $3 for a hardcover. I mean, come on. Clearly I should get that book.
It's a really great book for managing the expectations of the people around you.
Yeah.
And your interaction with them so that they get the world that you're operating in, because it's very, very different. My husband and I have talked about this. Sorry, I'm on a roll right this moment.
Go.
When I was dating, right, and I realized I was looking at my husband's sphere of friends, they were almost all employees, right? And then we looked
customers.
At my sphere of friends, and they were all business owners and all entrepreneurs, right? And it was very, very interesting because Jeff was a corporate sales trainer for Verizon. And so he was training sales teams on how to sell different products, right? And I said, look, you guys are like, you're selling to business owners wrong. Like, he's like, the price of the phone is really not that important to me. The price of the phone is offset by everything that allows me to do, grow, and expand for my business.
Right.
It is a tool. And if you show me that it is a really good tool that's going to triple my money that I'm putting into it,
They're in.
I'll buy it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why do you think the Grant Cardones of the world do so well? See, this is the real secret to becoming like what these big people do. Just write a book and completely BS it, and people will buy the book, and then it's not BS anymore.
Well, but what's really funny is when we realize that thing about employees versus business owners think a little differently.
On versus in your business, right? Working on versus working in.
That's part of it, but
Yep.
they also think through investment differently.
Yep.
And risk differently. So if you are a business owner or an entrepreneur and you have a bunch of people in your life who are really invested in the stability that is perceived by being an employee, and they're your family, right? You need to find a way to have them feel safe with the risks that you're taking. That's what that book is about.
Pick myself up a copy.
Yeah.
No Audible, unfortunately. That is my preferable way for books is audiobook, because then I can listen to it while I'm working instead of having to like, all right, I guess I have to stop working before I want to go to sleep to read a book. Yeah. That is a lot harder for me to do because I will forget. That is the other problem in this maker community, is that we have a lot of things like, how many of you have projects that aren't done yet? And you're just not going to talk about how many of them there are, or where they're located, or what step they're in. I mean, I'll raise my hand for that too. I'm okay with this.
I have one that's getting completed today that I have literally had halfway done for probably 8 months. It's personal for me. It's a new jewelry thing that I designed for myself. But still, it happens to everybody. No shame.
No shame at all. And Tony, welcome to the Discord community. You joined our YouTube channel membership at the $10 tier, which means he gets to come hang out with the craziness that is our private Discord community of people. It gets weird sometimes, and that's actually where I will share. So, I'm working on this product, and normally speaking, you'd want to be very, very, very quiet about it. Well, we're not going to open source it. We're going to open source what we have to, but the rest of it is going to be all kind of just trade secret. I'm just not going to tell anybody. The Discord community gets to watch me work on it when I'm working on it. Like, if you guys want to copy it, go ahead. If you're going to end up buying one and reverse engineering it anyways, so go do whatever you want, This community is an odd one, right? The 3D printing industry, in that it is based upon open source. So it's like poo-pooing patents, and I've had to get myself away from that. Like, patents are evil. No, they're not evil, but if you don't have 100 grand ready and willing to fight for your rights, not to party, but to your ideas, then you're not ready to get a patent. Josh Malone and I'm really trying to pull Josh for a podcast episode, because every inventor knows his story, and if they don't know his story, they will know his story. He's the story of the Zuru bunches of balloons. You must know Josh. Yeah. I was gonna say, given your work with USPTO, you must know Josh. He's awesome. He's such a nice guy.
I think patents are a tool, and they have a place. It's just like, I look at all of the business building functions, all of the different resources of manufacturing things, all of the different design approaches as tools. And just like when you're building a house, if you need to cut a piece of plywood, you don't go get a hammer, you go get a saw, right? It's the same thing. They're all tools.
Find my saw, I'm getting a hammer.
Right, you may be using a chisel and a hammer, and it'll be a little slower and not as pretty. That's okay. I can come up with it. I'll give it right back. So I think that you have to look at things like it's a toolbox, and based on what you're trying to build and where you're trying to go, you're going to get different tools out of the toolbox and approach it differently. That's the real deal. That's why the answer to a lot of questions is it depends.
Boy, that pisses people off, right? We have what is it going to take to make my idea? It depends. What do you mean it depends? I'm like, You've told me like 3 things about your idea. The answer is it depends. I don't know. What do you mean? You're an expert. I'll be very clear with you that I'm only an expert on what I know. I'm not an expert on what you know because I don't know it yet.
Yeah.
I wish there were ways that I could accurately tell that to people without sounding like an asshole, but sometimes I just say send it, and if their feelings get hurt, then their feelings get hurt. Oftentimes people find that me being very honest with them goes a long way into making it real. Like we had a client with a fabric product. I do not really touch fabric products, but I have a client that does. We work with Tony Suits. They make wingsuits. Uh, really cool client. We helped them break a world speed record with 3D printing. They
That's
have
cool.
they have the fastest level flight of a human at the time. I believe it's been broken now, but they have the fastest level flight. We know Felix Baumgartner did the fastest human in free fall, but there's the record for fastest level flight of a human. That's normally done with a wingsuit. We help them do that by creating leading edges for the arms that were solid and built to the arm of the wingsuiter. But they did something that was really interesting. They're all fabric. They hired retirees out of the homes, out of these retirement homes to come and work for them. So they're getting like 70 and 80-year-old seamsters and seamstresses that make some of the best lines in the world, right?
Right.
These are people that have been practicing this same craft for decades. They've been put there by their family for whatever reason, and they're now finding a new lease on life. And that helped this particular client grow their that whole ideology of stop looking for new talent. There's
Yeah.
so much old talent that is willing to work for the same amount of money the new talent is, but you don't have to train them. They're just looking
Mhm.
for something to do. Give them something to do, and they're amazing. He found a retired general manager of the welding department of Harley Davidson to make his molds. He found 2 like world class seamstresses in the same retirement home. He built a business local to them. So, and he convinced and paid the retirement home to work on a shuttle that brought the people to and from the business every single day so they could do their job. They didn't have to worry about transportation, and he paid for it all. And he now has a multi-million-dollar clothing business selling activewear. That's what he does.
Mhm.
And it's just really cool to me to see all of that. And it's like, it's just that one little spark that changes your mindset from I only want the young and the new and the people that are willing to do anything to wait a minute, am I looking for that, or am I looking for someone that actually cares about their work? I'm not saying the young people don't care about their work, but they're not going to care about it the way that someone that's been doing it for 40 years cares about it. If you've been doing a job longer than the person you're talking to has been alive, generally speaking, you care more about it than they do, right? Like, because you wouldn't be in it if you didn't, right?
Mhm.
And that difference was the world to him. He was outsourcing all of his work to the Middle East, to Pakistan, where a lot of wonderful clothing is made. Now
Mhm.
he brought it made in America, where his costs were a little bit higher, but he was able to raise his prices considerably because now it's made in America and people are willing to pay extra for it. And
Right.
he added over 30% to his bottom line from that. And to
Mhm.
me it's about it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Well, I really like Dan Sullivan's, who not how
Yes.
is really great.
Mhm.
For me, we've had packaging that needed to be repacked,
Mhm.
like or manual assembly things. There's a great company that we've used for that hires people that are from rehab facilities. And they do fabulous work. They're really great if it's like kind of a repetitive thing. Um, so there's a ton of alternate sources for things. And you know, I know with the world economy and the gig economy, such
Mhm.
as Fiverr, etc., That's undergone a lot of change, by the way. Fiverr is not what it was when it started. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, yeah. Neither is Etsy.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that there's a lot of alternative sources. It's about opening your eyes
Yes.
and looking and thinking, how could you get it done?
The mindset is everything. The mindset is literally everything here. I mean, obviously, execution matters a ton, but if you come into a situation with the wrong mindset, the wrong expectations, then your execution doesn't matter because you're never going to get there, or you're going
Yeah.
to execute the wrong thing for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And if you really want to grow, love that the idea of ask better questions. You know, if you want to grow, ask better questions.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Amy, I want to thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for spending way more time than we had booked hanging out and talking today. It's been great hanging out with you, especially on it's early Sunday morning for you, I guess now, getting into your afternoon. Um, this has been awesome. It's a conversation that I know we need to have because it's a conversation I like to have these yearly where I bring in people that are hardcore into this, kind of the same stuff that I'm into, to basically say he's not crazy. He's actually speaking, the truth here. And while I am nowhere near as seasoned as you, one day I will be.
That is a kind phrase. Thank you.
No, look, I have business experience. I have business degrees. You have the art degrees that I don't have. I bring in artists because I don't if Amber and I ever get married, I am not allowed to do anything for the house. I can fix the house. I am not, and I can maybe 3D scan it and put it in CAD for her. I am not allowed to do anything when it comes to interior design. Period. Do you know why? All the walls would be gray. All the floors would be hard floor that's easy to, it'd probably be, honestly, it'd be epoxied concrete, right?
I was thinking the same thing. It'd be like concrete floor from garage
Yes,
throughout.
the
Right?
epoxied floors with a floor drain. So it's easy to clean, right? Like,
Very scenic in a living room.
and and instead of a TV, there's probably a Haas mill, right? There's a nice CNC mill as my television, and that's not allowed. Um, so it's I am not an artist. And whenever I do ask the question, we will be designing the rings here live. That's going to be the other thing I want to do with the channels. I'm going to be designing my engagement and wedding rings live, which means I have to somehow keep her away for those live streams, but I think
Huh.
she'll understand. But yeah, Amber's ideal house would be lots of glass windows, stained glass everywhere, plants in every room. I'm like, that's a lot of effort. I'm gonna forget to water them. They can be fake, I guess, but fake plants aren't any fun. You have the pothos behind you. I used to have a pothos behind me on my standing set. Then I forgot to water it. She has revived it, and it is sitting in the greenhouse outside, trying not to freeze. But it is very different looking at my perspective versus someone who is artistic, like she is. So,
Oh
Amy,
yeah.
again, thank you very much. Website again, let everyone know where to find you. Give your pitch.
Productstoprofits.com. And if you want to book a discovery call, go to productstoprofits.com/discovery. We're like super easy about our things. And those are a free conversation. And you'll be able to talk with me about your project, what it is you're trying to do, and see if we're a fit to help. We work primarily with people that are building businesses, and we do have some clients that are working on licensing. And so we have different ways that we work. Matter of fact, we have a new training course coming out. We have the multi-channel marketing machine group that is starting in mid-February. So there's a lot of different approaches. It doesn't have to be a massive project. What we really like to do is work and scale with where you are,
Yep.
right? Because if you can eliminate some of the going into the weeds, going into the going off the shoulder of the road, for example. It's a lot easier. And it's a lot easier to direct a project when you're in motion than when you're sitting and not doing anything.
Exactly. And remember, you'd rather have four-wheel drive than two-wheel drive. That's why having a team is there for you if you are trying to get that in motion. Obviously, we need to have some discussions off stream at some point of
Yeah.
working together and what that looks like, because there are certain times where either clients aren't good fits for me and they're good fits for you, or they're phasing out of my business and they can easily phase right into yours. And for those that are out there listening, wondering how the hell you can start, a lot of it is get those ideas on paper, get them written down, and proof them out as much as you can. That is what it is all about to get started. You need, look, the difference between science and screwing around is writing things down. That is an Adam Savage quote, and that is the absolute truth. So get it all on paper, start writing it down. I don't care if you make a Google Docs or you start, scratching it on a napkin. It does not matter. But understand that this is not an overnight process. We are all here to help you, and that is the goal of it. So,
Yeah.
Amy, again, thank you so much for your time. Do you know my outro? I always ask people if they know my outro.
I don't.
Okay, no one ever does. Even my father forgets it. And he's been watching my. See, he comes on every year for Father's Day. So we do a Father's Day special every year where I interview my dad, which ends up being a back and forth roast for like an hour and a half. It's more for me than it is for anybody else, but I really do enjoy it. The outro is, stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Take care, everyone.